In this video we're going to be taking a tour around my Sunshine Tidings build. This is a scrappy no mods playthrough build and it's packed with interesting and interactive features. We have a working Brahmin farm, we have lots of cool traps. It's another lore friendly build with lots of roleplay and headcanon. And I've even managed to squeeze in a lot of cool tips for new builders. So stay with me and let's take another trip back to the wasteland. Hello everyone and a massive welcome or welcome back to Fallout Play Build Collect. Not sure if you'd call this the main entrance, but certainly the main road that people would approach from. Let's start here. First feature, not really a wall, more of a defensive emplacement. You can see here we've got a flamethrower trap, some concrete walls, some barricades. We'll take a look at this from the other side in a second. I decided the best bet here is not to try and put a wall around the entire settlement, but to try and cater for each individual area on its own. So you can see over the large shed on the right here, I've built this large wooden structure, and this was one of the very first buildings I ever built in the game. So this is very, very old and very basic looking design wise. Now this is a playthrough build, so it's a build that's developed over a number of years and more sophisticated things I've added later on. So it's a good mix of both. Taking a look at this small shed, I found this very awkward to work with. Obviously there's a body in there that we can't scrap without mods. This is a no mod build of course. So I just closed up the entrance there, and you can see I've turned it into part of the defensive structure. Now as we go up, you can see that I've added these floor sections in. They've gone into the roof quite nicely. This did take a lot of lining up to get this to match up with the other side. Very, very awkward. Even though this is a very open settlement, I think it makes sense to have a defensive position here because these two roads are the two main roads leading up to the settlement. Try to make this defensive position look really improvised and really scrappy, but it does feature one of my tidier wiring setups. But as you can see here, I've managed to use pieces from both the original game and the DLCs. And overall, I'm quite pleased with the job I've managed to do here. I think it looks quite tidy, and these two spotlights look quite good in the dark. Let's head down now towards the second guard post. And here comes the guard. Is he going to wait there? He's going to wait for me to pass. That's very polite. Thanks, mate. This defensive position looks out over the dam. I found it really frustrating that there's no native water in this settlement, but here we have this massive body of water, and yet you can't build anything anywhere near the water. Well, I think I found a really good solution for that, so stay tuned later on and I'll show you what that is. Right, we'll go up onto the roof of the main building, and originally when I first came to this settlement, this was the main building and it was pretty much the only building, so this had a full defensive array on top. Now we've still got some of the turrets remaining here. The wiring you can see was quite complex up here as well. But as time's gone on, this hasn't been necessary and I've gradually taken things off and moved them to other parts of the settlement. As we come along the gangway here to the front, we can see we've got a powered door. And we head inside and we've got a very, very basic dorm room. There's two sections of the dorm room. This is the more upper class section. They've got double the storage space and better beds. And we have an office area with some storage, and then we have the more basic beds and a basic locker. And these lockers, if you're wondering where they're from Creation Club. I've become quite fond of these lockers and found myself putting them into these sort of dorm rooms. But if you haven't got them, you can just use the foot lockers under the bed as I've used in some of my other settlements. Just before we head down, there's something I'd like to mention. Originally the staircase went straight up to the roof. Even though I really like the look of the design, I took it down and changed it and put the boardwalk in when the settlement expanded. And that's something I'd say to people, don't be frightened to take things down and change things and experiment. If you don't like the changes, you can always go back to an earlier save. Now you can see as I come around here, I've added this rest area for fishermen. I think fishermen would come here. It makes a lot of sense to me you'd fish because this path heads straight down there to the large body of water again. Next to it here we can see we've got the rest area for the traders. And the traders do stop in here. They drop their Brahmin here, and occasionally somebody will sit here in the chair. We've got a restroom there for them as well. And the traders will go inside and use the shop. And you can see them doing that later on in the night tour. Now this collection of restrooms here on the back, this is a pure headcanon thing. Now there's obviously some kind of storage system here with a pipe going into the ground. And my thinking here is they use the restrooms, it collects the waste, and it goes into an underground storage system. And then they use that as fertilizer. Let's take a look at the second building now, and this was the second building added to the settlement. This one was added when the DLC came out with those scaffold pieces. And I've turned this into a command room and defensive position. Here's our base commander, and he's keeping track of things there. He's got his Vault-Tec population management system, some beds in here, kept the sink there. I love those little yellow sinks. It's a shame we didn't have those in the base game. That's his bed and 2 beds for his 2 guards. Let's head up to the defensive deck. As I said, this was one of my first uses of these scaffold pieces, and I was very pleased it gave us far more options for getting up on top of other buildings. We have a Minutemen guard, and we have these guard turrets. You get attacked from that direction, and they provide nice defence there. Individually wired, in case one of them gets taken out. The other one will keep running. This Minutemen guard just walks between these 3 defensive positions, so he stays up here all the time. Of course, his bed would be down below in the offices. Another laser turret here, in case anybody gets past the outer defences. And one of the old machine gun turrets. That's one that used to be up on top of the main building. Now here we have something else from Creation Club. Now I was mentioning about coming up with a solution for getting water into this settlement. And this is one of the solutions. Now there are 2 large water towers, and I believe they come with the virtual workshop download from Creation Club. And ever since I saw them, I was trying to find the perfect location to put them into a settlement. And this one being near a large body of water and with the other silos already in the area, it just seemed to fit perfectly. But what do you guys think? Do you think this fits well into the settlement? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So let's walk along this path that runs along the back of the settlement. You can see one of my scrappers there, and he works in this building. And this building I've turned into a workshop. All of your basic workstations and plenty of space to store your goods. And this central storage section I've used to cover up the body that can't be scrapped. Of course, putting the scrapping station actually in here with the workbenches is great because it means the NPC actually comes in and uses the building. That's a nice little tip there for new builders. You can use these scrapping stations to draw your NPCs into an area. If I hadn't have done that, none of the NPCs would go anywhere near this part of the settlement. Small things like this can really make the settlement seem far more alive. So next let's have a look at the central building. Now I made this tin fence. I think it matches the other buildings quite nicely, and I've done it using fence panels. And you can sync them in using something called the pillar glitch, and there's a video for that in the building playlist if you're a new builder and you'd like to learn that technique. So Brahmin farm there on the right, we'll get to that in a second. First off here you can see I've used the large barn door, and behind it I have a large power generator. And next to that you can see I've managed to fit a wall in here with another door and some smaller power generators behind it. And this provides ample power for the centre of the settlement. I think this was quite a tidy solution. It makes sense to have the power in the middle. It's easier to move it out towards the other sections of the settlement from a central location. Now we have the Brahmin cage to the Brahmin farm. 2 gates. The first gate you would leave open and you would trap your Brahmin. And then you would close the external gate and open the internal gate and release the Brahmin. And he would go out into the field with all the other Brahmin. As you can see here, I've got quite a few already, and there's one in the cage. So let's close this gate up so he can't get out, and we'll release him. You can see how it works. Here it comes. Oh, a bit glitchy on the exit. There you go. And he's probably going to get stuck on that rock. There you go. But he will get in there eventually, and he'll join the herd. And that's how you build yourself up a full herd of Brahmin. Next, let's take a look at the elephant in the settlement. It's this large defensive tower. And as soon as I saw this silo, I knew I wanted to build on top of it. Now this one was a real pain to do. It took a lot of alignment and a lot of experimentation. And I had to build another scaffold to build this scaffold. Of course, anyone who works with these scaffold pieces will know they can be quite forgiving in some ways and really fiddly and awkward in others. And the first station on top here, we have a security desk, and I've used this with a workman here. He's a Minuteman workman, and he sits here at his desk and he keeps track of everything going on in the settlement. Using these guard desks is another cool way to bring NPCs into an area and have them interact with a structure. As we come around, you can see I've put the oil lamps on each of the sections as you come up. On every floor there's an oil lamp, so when you come up here in the dark you can see where you're going. It's quite nice. You've got a lovely view from up here. Again, you can look out, see everything going on in the settlement, keep track of everything, and you can see everything on the internal side. As we head up to the top deck, you'll see there's a guide looking out to the outside. It took a lot of work to get these stairs aligned, it really did. It was really awkward, really fiddly, but got there in the end, and I'm quite pleased with it now it's here. What do you guys think of this? As we come to the top, you see there's a green light. That lets everybody in the settlement know that this area is manned and that we're being defended. And this guy's got a sleeping bag, he's got storage, he's got food, he's got heat up here, he's got a spare weapon. And this guy, in my headcanon, he's a grizzly veteran. He's an experienced marksman and a sniper. And of course you get attacked from down in that direction, you get enemies gathered down there, and he can come up here and he can pick them off if anybody comes in. Now I've got a rocket turret on one side, and I have machine gun turrets on the other three corners. Now I wanted this tower to be individually powered, I thought that was important. That's a little bit of headcanon, and it's also quite practical for in-game. As it happens, it looks like I can spy some enemies here on the horizon. Let's get them engaged and draw them in. I don't think I'm going to have to do any shooting, nor is my marksman. We'll see how effective that rocket turret is. Very effective. Very, very effective. There's the second guy, and he's just creeping round, and it'd be pretty difficult to shoot him from here. Let's see if we can get him to engage with the rocket turret. Here he comes. And there he goes. Rocket turrets are devastating. And I guess that's an easy day at the office for my marksman.
Lost track of how many blisters I got.
Yeah, you really put a shift in there, mate. Really put a shift in. So as you can see there, one rocket turret is enough. Always have it facing out. Don't have it facing in. You'll end up with friendly fire casualties. And we'll have to send a recovery team out to loot those bodies. In the meantime, let's head down. To the side of the tower here, you can see I've got these spike traps, just in case anybody wants to try and come through that gap. Not quite sure how they've got past the defences, but if they have, they've got a nice spike trap to deal with. I've been looking to try and find ways to integrate the traps into settlements a little bit more, and I thought this was an ideal place since we had so many different sides that the settlement can be approached from. So we have another spike trap here, and we have a turret on this stand, and a guard post to the right hand side of it. Also from the outside looking in, you can see on the side of the tower, this is the little mini tower where the power generator is that powers the whole defensive structure. Let's have a walk around from the outside so you can see what this looks like from the outside coming in. And between the building and the tower there we have that spike trap. There he is for anybody who wants to sneak past that. And I think the bush hides it a little bit as well, so I think that would be doubly effective. I just blocked off the back of that house there. And then as we move around the side, you can see this next defensive position. You can see it looks quite closed off when you come at it from this side. It looks more open from the inside, but when you come at it from here, it looks quite closed. You've got the intimidation there of the turret and the spike trap, and of course those spiky barriers. So as we come round to this slope has a pathway that leads down under the road. And rather than try and wall this off or create some kind of gateway, I thought it was better off just to leave it open and put a defensive position on each side. Now I've tried to integrate the houses into the builds as much as possible here. I didn't want to go on top of all of them. I thought it would be a bit too contrived. So you can see on this one I've got 2 guard posts, and the chap will go down to the 3rd guard post, which is just behind the spike trap there. So that particular guard will go along those 3. And you can see here on the other side we also have 3. I have a lower one in a defensive position there, and of course one on top of the house. So you can see the house is boarded up, and if you've seen my videos on rug and pillar glitching, you'll know this is where I was doing it, and this is the project it was originally done for. And we have this scaffolding around the side again, leading up to the top. Quite tidy wiring, I'm quite pleased with that. Now here he comes, just as we're about to come down. Now he's going to go down to the other 2 positions, as I mentioned earlier. Have turret on either side, one of them powered, one of them just a normal machine gun turret. There's the powered heavy laser turret. Again, if anybody gets through the defences, then they've got that to deal with. Looking out over the Brahmin farm there. So let's head back down and round, and we should see that guard heading into the other defensive positions. These are quite easy to do. So you just put down the junk fences, and then you put a small scaffold behind, and sit the guard post on top. So overall, I think these sort of guard posts make a really nice alternative to making an entrance with a gate. And they're certainly much easier to build and line up. And they just give you a lot more flexibility on placement. So next let's come down behind that position and in between here and the main gate. Now this would have been very easy just to put a wall across there and just wall this one off. This was an area that would have been easy to do that. But after I put the traps down on the other side, I thought perhaps use another trap, and I thought maybe use this saw trap. I'd never used one before. And I decided to put one next to each other so we could cover the gap completely. And when you trigger the lasers, away go the saw blades. So you can see here I've got them individually switched. You can shut them down if you wanted to, maybe if you had friendlies around. But I mean, you look at these, are they really a practical thing? Would this really give you any defence? I don't think so. I think they're kind of fun though. It's one of those things, just adding a little bit of fun into a settlement, making it a little bit more creative occasionally. I do like realistic builds, I like thematic builds, I like lore-friendly builds, as you know. But occasionally I think it's nice just to throw a little bit of these fun features in there, just to add a little bit of colour. Next, let's turn our attention to the other side of the central building. Now you can see the junky fence I've put around the outside. I think it matches the building quite nicely. And if we open the big doors, we can see we have a clinic inside. And the settlers do come and they sit in the chairs and they wait for the doctor, which looks quite nice when somebody's actually sitting there waiting for her. And that's a false wall there at the back. And behind that was the power generator room that we saw before. I think it blends in quite nicely. You wouldn't really know that was two things separated. So let's move into the farm. Here we can see we've got most of the basic crops. And I've also got two of these water purifiers. I like turning them around, so we've got one face in each direction like this, so it's almost like it's one machine. I think that looks quite good. We have our guard dog, and as I said, most of the basic crops. This is an area obviously where the ground is pre-prepared to make it look like crops anyway, so it's the ideal place to put it. Of course you could do it on the other side where I had the Brahmin pen as well, but I think this one looks better. And of course on the roof we have the twin back-to-back aircraft engine power generators. These don't fit on that curved roof at all, so I've had to build this false roof section up there, and it was very, very awkward and fiddly to do. But I like these things. I think they look scrappy, and I think they suit the settlement really nicely. Just quickly mention the flame trap on the other side of the entrance. This was quite easy to put in, and it has its own switch. Again, there's a defensive section here, so you've got all the holes in the wall. The idea would be the guys could come behind here and actually fire through the holes if they wanted to. Has its own switch and power. There's another generator in there with another scrapping station, so it looks like the guy goes in there and works on the generator. And last but not least, we have the commissary and the shop. And you can see I've tried to turn this into a food service area and a diner. Those fridges back there with the food in them are from Creation Club, but you could of course use the normal fridges if you haven't got those. These pieces are from the Vault-Tec DLC, the drinks machine there, and the fruit machines. It's also nice to see the traders come in here and interact with the facilities. Stay tuned for the night tour and you'll see a lot more of that action later. You can see the wooden legs from the stilt floors glitch through the ceiling quite nicely. I was a bit surprised that they did, and of course they look untidy, but rather than hide them I thought I'd make a feature of them, so I've attached various lights to them. These are another thing from the Creation Club arcade section, where you can have the lights on the wall there, which I think is quite nice. I've got one at the other end. All of these light sources really do look better in the dark. So stay with me, we'll go to the night tour. This is one of those settlements that really does look good at night. And here we are, we'll start with the trade area. And as you can see, this place really starts to come alive when the traders are in town. So let's head round and head into the commissary and bar area. And we can see that the traders hang out at this end. I think this works quite well because it seems like they've got their own section. And it's nice to see the workers come in here at night. They order food, they play the fruit machine. It's really nice, gives the settlement some really nice character. As I went out around the settlement, wherever I was putting in electrical pylons or any other kind of conduits, always tried to put a light there. I think the importance of lighting is underrated in settlement building. I think some well-placed lights can add a lot of texture, a lot of character to a settlement. For example, I've used these mining helmets with the lights on the front on all of the workers that don't stand in guard posts. Those mobile lights moving around the settlement help to give it a lot of life at night. Another tip I'd like to give new builders is perhaps using different colour lights. I think it's important to try and get different colours in there as well. That's another thing that can add a lot of realism and a lot of mood to your settlement. On this tower and other towers across my other settlements, you notice I also use the strobe lights. I think these look great in the settlements, and they've got that real world practical application of helping the vertibird pilots avoid high areas like this in the dark. It's just another one of those role play things I like to add a little bit of extra realism to the builds. Before you head off, I have to say a massive thank you to a new supporter. It's Conway Brew. He's followed the channel for a long time and he's now supporting us on Patreon. Massive thank you to him. He has his own YouTube channel and he's a very creative builder. I highly recommend checking out his channel, and I'll leave a link to it in the description below. As always, an enormous thank you to everybody who supports me, either on Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, or here on YouTube. Every dollar goes towards producing new content, and without these supporters, the channel simply wouldn't exist. If you're still watching, there's a good chance you'll enjoy some of our other content, so don't forget to check out some of the other videos before heading off. So as always, take care of yourselves and each other. I hope to see you in another video very soon. Thanks for watching.